images, etc. And so Safari also comes with the built-in reader mode support since 2010. So apart from that, the interesting thing is the next challenge was to look for different vulnerabilities like UXSS or SOP bypass because of the different origin which we are in. But sadly, there was no success. I tried a lot of test cases to found any of the related issues, but I failed to do so. I completely failed to do so. But at last, I figured out that this can use to bypass CSP checks in Safari reader mode. So for instance, possible attacks or different possible test cases which was not covered before. And so I started playing with the iframes. Now you might be wondering what is the point of playing iframes in Safari reader mode, because they were the first thing which will get removed by the Safari reader mode as we discussed previously. But the main idea was to check if Safari imports any content such as text, images, etc. and the height and width remain same. So this is how it looks in normal view. So now we have only one paragraph at the top frame, and rest of the content is from the child frame itself, which is loading from the evil.com. And as soon as it gets rendered into the reader mode, the document is turned into like this. So did you notice something not comes under the same origin? Browser will not allow us to do so, and so we will get a SOP violation error which says, for being in same origin, the protocols, domains and ports must match. And same as vice versa, when you try to read the content of top frame from the child frame, that is reading the content from evil.com to lab.com. The cashback code, and then inside an iframe we have the SVG element. And so as soon as this document is rendered again into the reader mode, you will see that this is being taken from the top frame, this is from the top frame, and rest of the content, this is taken from the child frame as well. And again, as soon as you scroll down to the document and click SVG element, which is a black circle, you will get a pop-up with the value of S2 element, which again says you have $1,000 PayPal cashback, and this is your PayPal code. So now this was the first success in bypassing the SOP. So now at this point in time, I was also very, very curious to know if we can somehow reverse this process. So till the time we have witnessed how a child frame can access the content of top frame, and since a child frame can access the content of top frame, which means you can read the top window location, which might contain any session token or CSRF token or any unique token based on the website functionality. Also, you can change the content of top frame, which should log a message called as blah. So again, the document. Again, the SVG is being considered by the reader mode. As you can see that we have the SVG element, but the weird thing was that now the href is pointing to some of the SVG property from the reader mode, which says object SVG animation string. And as soon as you click on that, you will be landed on a non-existing page. So this is of no use for us. So what do we do now? We have the SVG element. We have it pointing to the JavaScript URI, but Safari is adding its own property to the href, and maybe this is something predefined by the Safari, because again it is spelling some sort of attack. Now after again digging a bit, I figured out that if we place our SVG element before even closing the h1 tag, that is, this is the opening of h1 tag, and before we close it, we should place the SVG element that we have. So let's see what happens when this particular code gets rendered into the reader mode. And as you can see that as the code is rendered into the reader mode, now we have the SVG element, and again we have the href, which is prompt you a dialog which says, do you want to allow downloads on particular website, and if you click allow, then you are allowed to download files, otherwise you are not. So once you click allow, from next time onwards, you can download any files from that websites without any prompt, or Safari will not bother you to ask you again. So for instance, let's suppose the apple.com is already added as a trusted site, the insecure mode, insecure origin. Even if you check the window.isSecure context, it will return as false, which means this is not the secure context. So we cannot request other permissions such as the audio, video, and screen share and geolocation permission. So now that again a task, the next task or the next goal is to somehow convert this insecure origin to a secure origin. And since so at this point in time, again I did a lot of attempts to try different things to make it in a secure origin, but I ended up finding only one thing, which is after even reading the documentation, I realized that the local host and the file URIs are considered to be in secure origin because they helps developers to test their setup on the go before even moving to the production. So again, if you we are checking the location dot its secure context, which is false. And again, if we set the location dot host name to the local to the value of localhost, and if we check the secure context again, value of localhost, and if we check the secure context again, it is returning us true. So which means now we have successfully converted a insecure context to permissions. We have the video permission from the localhost. And you can also create different or use different sort of blob URIs to prompt the user with different or weird origins. Now, as I already discussed, localhost is just a name. It does not require anything or even have the localhost to run in the victim's browser. It is just a name. And so, yeah, I tried again to figure it out, but sadly there was no success at all in finding the geolocation permissions. And so we can also bypass the CSP as we discussed in our initial attempt, that assume if there is any website which has a perfect CSP in place, so it will trigger in normal mode, but as soon as the document is turned into the reader mode, it will not trigger it. So we can bypass the CSP checks using the Safari reader mode. So again, all of these bugs are fixed in August 2020 security updates by Apple, and some of the bugs are grouped into one. So they have assigned to CVE's ID. And also the bugs are fixed in a weird way. Now what I mean by weird ways is that they again just make sure to stop the JavaScript code execution. That is it. And rest of the behaviors are working same as it is. For instance, the importing content from child to top or top to child is working as it is. Also, the behavior of most of the behaviors from the location.hostname properties is working same